Hi guys, welcome to my channel Lush Gardener. So in today's video, I'm going to be talking about when you tend to see your succulent like this, never to do three things. Now one, the echeveria is already in its dormant season for most of the people. For me, it's not much of an issue. My echeverias are still growing in winters, which even I'm very confused and surprised. As you can see, there is a bloom on my echeveria. Now, ideally, echeveria will tend to look like this, especially during the dormancy season, but mine is not dormant because I'll show you the image on the screen how it looked couple of weeks back. Now, my succulent has turned out to be like this. It's because of dehydration. I haven't watered it, kept it underwatered for a long time, and hence all the leaves have started to close inwards. So what I'm going to do, the first thing over here, before we start talking about those three things, I will first try and get rid of the bloom stalk because the bloom stalk is pulling out a lot of energy from my echeveria. So I will go ahead and simply pinch the bloom stalk out. Now, once that's done, now I'm sure that my succulent will be able to conserve that energy for itself. Now, what are the three things that you're not supposed to do when you tend to see your succulent curled up like this? When you tend to see that the leaves are inwards like this, the first thing that you're not going to do is you will not do a leaf propagation. You will never take leaves from a succulent that tends to look like this. The reason why the succulent is looking like this is because it's completely dehydrated. Remember, whenever we are taking leaves from the mother plant for a leaf propagation, the leaf has to be very well hydrated. So whenever you're doing a leaf propagation, at least 3 to 4 days prior to the leaf propagation, ensure that you hydrate your mother plant. Now, if I'm going to take a leaf from this for a leaf propagation, the leaf propagation might not turn out to be very successful. Even though it might tend to put out pop, but it might not be very successful because in this, the water has already been lost from the mother leaf, so it is not going to work out really well. We need a well hydrated mother leaf because it's going to be kept to callus. After callus, we have to wait for the mother leaf to put out roots. Only then we go ahead and water. So from the process of plucking the mother leaf from the mother plant until the roots appear on the mother leaf, we will be not watering. So the pulp has to depend, or the root has to depend upon the water that is present in the mother leaf. So the mother leaf has to be well hydrated. Now the second point, what we are not going to be doing when the succulent tends to look like this is a stem cutting. Never ever do a stem cutting when you tend to see your succulent leaves are closing inwards. Same thing applies because the succulent is dehydrated. Because after you do the cutting, you have to wait for them to put out air roots. Now, when the process is going on of putting air roots, it's going to take a very long time. Probably it might take a week or maybe 2 weeks. At times it might even take a couple of weeks. So until then, we cannot water the succulent cutting. So we have to have a well hydrated succulent. So till the time the roots tend to appear, the succulent can still sustain itself. The third and the last thing that we are not going to be doing is separating the offset from the mother plant. Again, the same thing, dehydration, the mother leaf is closing inwards. The pulp is also starting to lose out on the water. Here the pulp tends to look a little bit chubby, but we still do not want to take a chance. We will hydrate the mother plant first, and then after a few days we can go ahead and separate it. So just to summarize it, you will not do a leaf propagation, you will not do a stem cutting, and you will not separate the offset from a dehydrated mother plant. So those were the three main things. Apart from that, I would suggest do not pull out any of the dry leaves. As you can see, there are a lot of dry leaves on this succulent right now. But right now for us, it's more important to hydrate the succulent rather than pulling out the dry leaves. For example, if I happen to pull out the dry leaves right now, then I cannot water it for another 2 to 3 days, because when we tend to pull out any leaf from the mother plant, there is going to be a cut. Possible cut, we are not very sure, so we do not want to take a chance. At times, pulling out the dry leaves and then watering it immediately could lead to a stem rot, so we do not want to take that chance. So right now, we do not need to be worried about the dry leaves. We can do that later on. First, our main priority is to hydrate the mother plant. So now in this process, what I'm going to be doing is I will be doing a top watering. So when you have a situation like this wherein the succulent is extremely dehydrated, please avoid doing bottom watering, because bottom watering will not be sufficient for this succulent. So in this situation, we have to do a top watering. I'm sure by now everyone knows how to water succulents from above. You have to have a bottle that has a thin nozzle and ensure that you are watering only the soil. Remember, we have taken out the bloom stalk. We do not want that cut bloom stalk to come in contact with water, do not pour water on that part, otherwise there could be a possible rot. So ensure that you're watering only the soil. Now over here I'm just taking a white container so that the water does not fall on the table. I'm just going to be using that underneath, but we have to make sure that the cut part does not come in contact with any moisture. So I will just place this above it and I will start with the watering. As you can see, this is my watering bottle which has a very thin nozzle, and I'm just going to aim at the base that is in the soil and just water it. Now this is going to take a couple of minutes because the soil is completely bone dry, so I will quickly do a fast forward. So now we are done with complete watering. As you can see, the water has started to pass through the drain hole. Ensure you do this. Do not just wet the upper layer of soil. That is not called as complete watering. Your succulent will still remain dehydrated if you're going to do that. So you have to water until the water starts passing through the drain hole. Now, if you want, what you can do is you can go ahead and put a little bit of cinnamon powder in the soil, or you can even put it on the place where we have done the cut. Now unfortunately I have ran out of cinnamon powder, so I'm just going to try and scrape it with my finger, and whatever powder I get, I'm going to put it on the cut where I had pulled out the bloom stalk, so that it can dry faster. Now if you do not have cinnamon powder, it's absolutely okay. You can just leave it as it is. It will get healed, but only ensure that it doesn't come in contact with any moisture or water. Otherwise there is a possibility, I'm not saying that it will rot, but there is a possibility of rot. So guys, now that we are completely done, I'll give you another tip. This usually takes, because the soil is loose, porous and well draining, the roots are healthy, so this succulent most probably will bounce within 24 to 48 hours, or let's say 72 hours, because it's extremely dehydrated. But I'm not going to be watering it again. We have done a complete watering, so the succulent will start to open up. Now another tip what I can give you is, whenever you are doing this process, if your succulent is extremely dehydrated, ensure that you move it away from direct sun. Keep it in indirect bright light so that it can recover. It's absolutely okay to keep it in that same position as well, but if you're going to move it to indirect bright light, the succulent will be able to hydrate itself much faster. But it again depends upon you. And once you feel that the succulent is hydrated and once the leaves have opened up completely, you can then move it again to the same place where it was kept earlier. So guys, that's all about it. I hope that this video was helpful to you. If it was, please hit the like button. If you're new to my channel, please consider subscribing to it. Until then, take care, stay safe and keep propagating.